Good morning, everyone. How are you? I hope you are all fine and you had a resting weekend. In this week's lesson, we are going to talk about planets. Last week, we were talking about stars. We talked about the characteristics of one of the most important stars in our solar system, which is the sun. In this week's lesson, we are going to talk about the planets. Before I start talking about the planets, each by its own, we all know that there is no life except on Earth, which is one of the planets in the solar system. But I want to ask you, what are the conditions that allow living things to live on Earth? So what is so special in Earth that allows the living things to live there? So I want you please to pause the video, write at least 4 conditions that are on Earth that allow living things to live on Earth or to be able to live on Earth rather than in any other planet. So pause the video, answer this question, and after this, let's move on. Okay. So to start with, we're going to talk about inner planets in today's lecture. We're going to learn now what do we mean by inner planets, and we're going to list the 4 inner planets in the solar system and talk in details about 2 of them. So let's start by watching this video.
The solar system is made of the sun and its planets, along with moons, asteroids, and comets. A planet is a large round object that revolves around a star and has cleared the region around its orbit. An orbit is the path an object takes as it revolves around a star, planet, or moon. There are 8 known planets that orbit the sun. The 4 closest planets are called the inner planets. These planets are Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. The inner planets have rocky surfaces. Earth, which is the 3rd planet from the Sun, is the only planet in the solar system with liquid water on its surface and the only planet known to support life. Earth has 1 orbiting moon. A moon is a natural object that revolves around a planet. Scientists have learned about the inner planets by using space probes. A space probe is a spacecraft that gathers data and doesn't need a crew. Got it? Sure you do.
Okay, as we watch this video which introduces our lesson today, let's move to the first idea that we are going to cover. So to start, we have to know our objectives. So in this lesson, we are going to talk about the inner planets, and in the upcoming lectures, we are going to discuss also the outer planets. We are going to talk in details about the Earth's position in the solar system and how we will learn how technology has helped people explore more about space. The important words to be covered in this lesson are planet, inner planet, space probe, and moon. I'm sure that you know at least 2 of them. So let's start. In order to start talking about inner planets and outer planets, we need first to define what we mean by planet. So actually we have 8 planets, 8 known planets that revolve around the sun. When we say revolve, it means that they rotate around the sun. We all took, when we were younger, that the Earth revolves or rotates around its own axis. So the Earth rotates around itself and it also revolves around the sun. This rotation of the Earth around the sun creates the year, and the rotation of the Earth around its own axis creates the day and the night. Okay, so in general, a planet is a large, round object that revolves around a star, and has cleared the region around its orbit. So in order to define an object to be a planet, it should be large, it should be round, and it should revolve or rotate around a star, and it should have cleared the region around its orbit. The 4 closest planets to the Sun are called the inner planets. That's why they are called the inner planets, because if we start counting the planets, the 8 planets, starting from the nearest one to the Sun, we can find that we have 4 planets that are the nearest to the Sun and 4 planets that are far away from the Sun. So the 4 planets that are near the Sun are called the inner planets, and the 4 that are far from the Sun are called the 4 outer planets. Okay, what is common between all the inner planets is that all the inner planets have rocky surface. When we say rocky surface, it means that if it happened and you stepped on one of these planets, you will find a surface to stand on. So it has rocks, it has a rocky surface. And the 4 inner planets are Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. So the closest one to the Sun is Mercury, then Venus follows it, then Earth, and then Mars. Okay, to move on, we said that the planets revolve around the Sun. We said that all the planets in the solar system revolve or rotate around the Sun. Actually, the orbits of the planets or the pathway of the planets. So if we look here at this picture, we can see the Sun, which is the center of the solar system. And then we can see the planets. So if you can look here, they are 1, 2, 3, 4 inner planets. So these are the 4 inner planets. Each of the planet has its own orbit, or let me say it as the pathway of this planet. And we can see that the orbits are elliptical, or they have an oval shape. So they are not a circle, they have an oval shape. Objects in the solar system stay in their orbits, so each planet stays in its own pathway, in its own orbit, because of the gravity of the Sun. So the strong gravitational force that is from the Sun keeps each planet in its orbit. So there's no planet that will just move from its orbit and go and move in the orbit of the other planet. So each planet stays in its own orbit because of the gravitational force that is formed from the Sun, which is very strong and that keeps each planet in its own orbit. Okay, to move on, we're going to start talking about the inner planets. We said that Mercury is the first inner planet. It is the closest planet to the Sun. It's a small planet. It's almost slightly bigger than the Earth's moon. And this is the shape, or this is the look, how Mercury looks. And it has, we can notice that it has a lot of craters. Craters occur actually when objects like meteors or rocks fall from the space and they crash into the surface of this planet. So they leave like a small hole. It's not a small, it leaves holes on the surface of the planet. So we call these as craters. Actually, you heard in the video the term space probe. It's a very important term when we talk about planets, because most of the information that we know about the planets are gathered by a spacecraft that gathers this information or data without a crew. So there's no one inside it. It carries cameras and other tools for studying different objects in the space. So we call this as the space probe. Well, because of the space probe, scientists could gather this important information about Mercury. Mercury actually has almost no atmosphere like the Earth. Because it's so close to the sun, Mercury is very hot during the day, but surprisingly, during the night, it's very cold because Mercury doesn't have an atmosphere that will gather or will store or save the energy from the sun. So it's only hot during the day, but during the night, it's very cold, because there is no atmosphere to gather the energy from the sun. So after we're done with this part, I want you please to pause the video and answer question 3, which is in page 279 in your books. So pause the video and answer this question, please. When you're done, we are going to move to the second inner planet, which is Venus. So Venus is the second planet from the sun. It's about the same size as Earth, but Venus rotates in the opposite direction. So Earth rotates from the west to the east, while Venus rotates in the opposite direction. Like Mercury, Venus is very hot and dry because it's very near to the sun. Unlike Mercury, Venus has an atmosphere. We said that Mercury doesn't have an atmosphere. On the other hand, Venus has an atmosphere made of thick swirling clouds. So it has clouds. And these clouds are very strong and have strong winds and lightning. The clouds of Venus are very hot and toxic. They reflect the sun's light very well. This makes Venus one of the brightest objects in Earth's night sky. So if we looked at this picture here, we can see Venus with the clouds. So see how the clouds are very thick. So this image shows what Venus would look like without clouds. So see, we can't see the inner parts of Venus because of its thick clouds. Now, I want you please to pause the video and answer question 4 on your book. So, up till now, you have to answer the first picture that I gave you, which are the characteristics that allow living things to live on Earth. Then we have the questions assigned on the book during the recorded lecture. So before I end up, let me sum everything up. So we defined planets as being very large and round objects that revolve around a star and has cleared the region around its orbit. We have 8 known planets. 4 are considered to be inner planets, and they are called inner planets because they are near the sun. And we have 4 outer planets that are far away from the sun. We talked in details about the first 2 inner planets, which are Mercury and Venus. Mercury is known to be the first inner planet because it's the nearest to the sun. It is a small planet, slightly bigger than the Earth's moon, and it's covered with craters. And we knew that Mercury doesn't have an atmosphere. That's why during the daytime, it's very hot due to the energy that comes from the sun, while during the night, it's very cold. And on the other hand, Venus, which is the second planet from the sun, is about the same size of the Earth, and it has a thick atmosphere opposite to Mercury, and this thick atmosphere is made up of clouds, of toxic clouds, and it makes Venus looks very bright. I hope you enjoyed today's lecture. Please, when you're done watching the recorded lecture, I want you to to solve the questions assigned and send them to me as a message on Classera. And please, if you have any question, if you have any suggestion or any concern, you can type it or record it on the discussion group that I will created on Classera. It will be named Grade 5 Week 4. Do not hesitate to ask me any question, whatever it was.